Hi, this is Chad Gladkowski, and welcome to the eighth in our series in Unfriendly Territory. Today we're going to be looking at friendly payback. This is the idea that when those who have hurt us, either physically, emotionally, verbally, what are we to do with them? How are we to respond? And we are to respond in a friendly way. We are to respond to them by treating them well. And part of the reason is, how do we want to be treated? Because you and I, all of us, everyone who hears me, has done something to hurt someone and to hurt them deeply. You may say, oh, no, I've never done that. But if we're honest, if we're really, really honest, we have done that. And so, how are we to respond? And in this lesson, in this time together, we're going to be looking at the life of Joseph, and we're looking at the idea of how he responds. Let me reset the history of where we are. The brothers have come down a second time into Egypt. You remember Joseph is the prime minister. He's the head of the land. There's been this horrific time of lack of food, hunger, because of a 7-year drought. They're coming down a second time. This time they're coming with Benjamin, and they come with their father's blessing, and they also bring the idea of coming down. So here we have, when they come down, the men brought the gifts and double the amount of the silver, and Benjamin also. This is Genesis 43:15. They hurried down to Egypt and presented themselves to Joseph. You see, they get down there, they have this long trip. Before, when they came down, they had to wait in line, but not this time. And when they come, they're coming a different time, but also in a different way. The first time they came with nothing, empty hands, empty baskets, empty stomachs. This time they're coming down with the best products of the land. They're bringing all sorts of things: balm, honey, spices, myrrh, pistachios, and almonds. I mean, they're bringing the best things that they had in that country, in that area, in that culture. And when they come down, they're bringing the things that their area is best known for. Think about it. Where did you grow up? And what were the things that your area was best known for? What was your family best known for? I come from the Chesapeake Bay area, and we were known for steamed crabs and crab cakes. Crab cakes were invented in Maryland. I don't care where you've been, what you've had, how you've had them. You ain't had a crab cake, baby, until you've had a Maryland crab cake. And they're bringing this stuff down with them. And when Joseph saw Benjamin with them, he said to the steward of his house, take these men to my house, slaughter an animal, and prepare a meal. They are to eat with me. This is Genesis 43:16. The idea that they come down, he sees the brothers, but he also is looking out and sees Benjamin, his own brother. And they don't understand what's going on. You see, they came to the governmental office where Joseph was, and they immediately get shuttled out. They don't know what's going on. They're not sure what they've heard, and they are going to have a dinner with the prime minister. This is a big deal because in this culture, whoever you sat down and ate with, you were saying, these are my friends. You never sat down and ate with your enemies. You're saying, these are the people I want to take care of. And they were frightened and confused. They said, we didn't know about the money. We did the right thing. We brought double the money. And they're frightened because it's not happening the way they thought. Has that ever happened to you? You go someplace, you think things are supposed to happen a certain way, and they don't. And what happens? You get scared and they get scared. You see, they didn't have the latest information. They didn't know. Joseph had spoken to the steward, but they couldn't understand what he said. You see, Joseph is speaking in Egyptian, and they didn't understand it. They didn't have the latest information. And the steward says to them, you know what? It's all right, he said. Don't be afraid. Your God, the God of your father, has given you treasure in your sacks. I received your silver. And then he brought Simeon out in Genesis 43:23. Joseph's steward steps in. He steps up to the plate. and says, let me give you the lowdown. Let me give the latest information. You see, you don't always have it, but when you do get the information, you have a choice. The choice is, which way are you going to choose? Something different, something unexpected happens. What are we going to do? We have a choice. We can have peace or we can have fear. That's your choice. Peace says, I'm going to trust God. I'm going to say, God, you're in charge. You know better than I. You have more information. You've got not just the global view, but also the view of me. Or am I going to try to take charge of my own feelings and say, I'm in control. I'm the one who's got to fix this. That leads to fear. That leads to worry. Now, I'm a great worrier, and when I worry, I have to tell you, I'm saying I'm in charge. But the steward says, you're God, the God of your father. You see, you can have peace in the midst of confusion. You see, God is not some impersonal force. He's not like karma, which is like a machine that says you do this, that happens. You know, it's not like that. You strike a match, it lights. The God of your fathers, that is the God of a relationship. He has come, He is taking care of you, He is watching out, and He brings evidence out of Simeon. You know, sometimes we need reassurance, don't we, when things happen that we don't understand? And the steward wisely brings Simeon out that says, look, here's proof that what I'm saying is true. And then the steward brought the men back into Joseph's house. He gave them water to wash their feet and provided fodder for their donkeys. Oh man alive, is this huge? This is unbelievable because he brings them from a public place to a private place. He takes them from a governmental office, a place of commerce, a building, and he brings them into a home. Who do you bring into your home? You only bring friends. You only bring people that you want to talk with. And you say you're going to have a meal with them. You're going to have a sit down. And part of the reason this is unbelievably huge is we don't understand the cultural difference. You see, to those people, to Egyptians, people from Palestine were detestable. They were like, oh man, I gotta hold my nose. I gotta turn away from them. They were detestable for a number of reasons. First of all, they were shepherds, and Egyptians didn't like shepherds. They didn't like sheep at all. They were smelly animals. And also the idea of eating with people who are detestable is like, no, we're not going to do this. But also was the idea of what they did, their work. It's the fact that this is what they did. You may have friends who do things that have jobs that are really kind of disgusting, but you don't bring them in from the disgusting work and have them sit down at the table. Marianne's dad was a machinist, and when he came home, he was dirty and smelly. And Marianne's mom, while she welcomed and loved Bill, said, you go downstairs and you change and wash up before you come into the kitchen. You see, that's the way it was. Here are these guys and they were detestable. And he's bringing them into their house. This is huge. And when Joseph came home, they presented to him the gifts they had brought into the house. And they bowed down before the ground and worshiped him. You see, Joseph had to finish his work. But I believe he also wanted to give time. You see, we're in such a rush. Oh, let's go out and do this. He says, no, you to the steward, you take them to my house, you take care of them, which he did, and then they had to wait. They had to wait. They gave them time to relax and to reflect on what was going on, and they bowed down. And then Joseph asked them, and he said, how is your aged father you told me about? Is he still living? Genesis 43:27. He remembers and he asks questions. Again, very unusual in the home, asking questions. This is personal interest. He's not just interested in, oh, well, let me send you a text message. No, tell me about relationships. Tell me about your people. And he shows personal interest by saying, I remember you and I remember our conversations. And they replied, your servant, our father, is still alive and well. And they bowed down, prostrating themselves. Now, this is really different. And the first time they bowed down, this time they don't bow down. They bow down and prostrate. That means they get all the way down on all fours. This is showing the most serious kind of respect. Because when you're on all fours, you have no way of defending yourself. You're saying, we are totally yours. We are helpless. We are hopeless. We are showing ourselves totally dependent on you. And in this scene, Joseph looks around. He looks, he sees them bowed down, and he's deeply moved by this. He's deeply moved at the sight of his brothers. Joseph hurried out and looked for a place to weep. He went into his private room and he wept there. You see, he remembers the dreams, all of them bowing down. And here are all 11 of them bowing down, including his brother. He's deeply moved. You know, we think of deeply moved as being somewhere in our head or in our heart, but this was gut wrenching. This is right down here, right? It's like you take a shot to the stomach. It takes your breath away. There's pain. You lose control. You bend over. That's the kind of pain he's in. And he collects himself and he gives them assigned seating. Think about when you go to a wedding reception, there's these little name tags, assigned seating. He gives the brothers assigned seating and he puts them in order from youngest to oldest. And they don't understand this. And when the portions were served to them, Genesis 43:30 tells us, from Joseph's table, Benjamin's portion was 5 times as much as anyone else's. This is an old, we don't do this now. We just put the food out and people serve themselves. We pass the plates. But that's not the way it happened. You see, Joseph was in charge, and Joseph actually served out the food. He gave the portions out. And when the portions were given to the brothers, well, here's the food. But when it came time for Benjamin, he loaded up on the mashed potatoes and the gravy, lots of turkey, roast beef, cranberry sauce, everything. He gave them everything. What kind of party person are you? You see, they had a party. Joseph threw a party for his brothers. These are the people who hated him. These are the people who sold him into slavery. These are the people who lied about him. These are the people who said terrible things about him. They tore off his clothes. They threw him down into a pit. And how is he repaying them? He's throwing them a party. Jesus was a party person. He was the same way. Remember, where is his first miracle? He and his disciples were invited to a wedding feast. Jesus didn't say, oh, I can't go there. I can't be with all those people. No, he was a kind of party person. He loved to be with people. He loved to interact with people, but not just people of his own kind, because Mark 2:15 says, when Jesus was having dinner at Levi's house, many tax collectors were eating with him, and his disciples were there, and many who followed him. Again, we have lost the idea of the culture, but this is so different. Jesus was a teacher. Jesus was respected as a holy man. He was seen as different. And what did you do with people who were tax collectors and sinners? Well, you stayed away from them. You didn't want to be bothered with them because somehow they were going to make you dirty. Somehow they were going to taint you. They were going to disrupt you and your relationship with God. And what does Jesus do? Jesus goes, first of all, to Matthew, and then who is also known as Levi. He is a tax collector. He worked for the government. He had sold out his country, had sold out his relationships, he had sold out his religion. And people who were like him were there, and sinners, Everybody, think of all the other things that people do. They were there, and Jesus sat down with them. This is a picture, not of Jesus going out to the people who were on the other side of the tracks. This is a picture of Jesus coming to you and to me. Because we're the people on the other side of the tracks. We're the people who have sold out. We have sold out other people. We have hurt other people. We've hurt ourselves. We have turned away from God. And Jesus sat down with them. He desperately wants to sit down with you and with me. He wants to sit across the table of our lives and say, tell me about what's going on. This is the kind of relationship we desperately need. This is what we want in our heart of hearts. Everyone wants someone to be transparent with. And the God who made us says, I want to have that with you, and that's why I came to die for you. Would you pray with me? Our Father and our God, I thank you that you love us, that you came to have that face-to-face transparent relationship with us. In Jesus' name, amen. God bless and bye-bye.